4 years ago, Ford did something no other automaker in America was willing to do. They built a pickup truck and they put a price on it that started with a 1. $19,995. Hybrid powertrain standard. 37 miles per gallon combined. A real bed, a real tailgate, and a tow rating that could handle a small trailer. The industry response was not applause. It was disbelief. Analysts said the margins were impossible. Rival product planners said Ford had made a pricing mistake it would quietly walk back inside of 2 years. There were people inside the truck business who genuinely believed the number was a marketing figure, a stripped-out unicorn trim that 300 people would ever actually take delivery of. They were wrong about almost all of it. But here is the part that matters to you, watching this right now, probably somewhere between a truck you already own and a truck you have been putting off buying. That price is gone. And what replaced it, and why it got replaced, is a story about far more than one pickup. Because when the 2026 Maverick pricing was finalized, Ford did something with that truck that almost nobody in the analyst community predicted. It moved in the opposite direction from every forecast, in the worst possible year to move that direction. I'm going to show you exactly what happened, exactly what it costs today, and exactly what it tells us about where every affordable vehicle in this country is heading. Stay with me. Let me take you back to what the Maverick actually was, because the mythology has gotten ahead of the facts. When it arrived for the 2022 model year, the Maverick was not a small version of an F-150. That is the thing people still get wrong about it. It was built on a car platform, unibody construction. Front-wheel drive is standard, with all-wheel drive available if you wanted it and were willing to give up the hybrid to get it. To a certain kind of truck buyer, that was heresy. To everybody else, it was the first sensible thing anyone had done with a pickup in 20 years. Because the base truck came with a hybrid system making 191 horsepower, and it returned 37 miles per gallon combined, not on a highway run, not with a tailwind, combined. There were compact sedans that year that could not match it. The XL trim was deliberately plain, black plastic bumpers, 17-inch steel wheels, cloth seats, but it had power windows, it had air conditioning, it had automatic emergency braking, and it had Apple CarPlay and Android Auto standard. That combination is what people missed at the time. Ford had not built a punishment truck. They had built a genuinely modern vehicle and simply refused to load it with the things that make trucks expensive. And the market responded in a way that caught Ford flat-footed. Order books filled. Dealers took deposits on allocations they had not been assigned yet. Reservation systems were paused. There were buyers waiting the better part of a year for a truck that was supposed to be the low-volume afterthought of the lineup. Because Ford had found something nobody in Detroit had bothered to look for in 2 decades. There was an enormous population of Americans who wanted a pickup, needed a pickup maybe 4 or 5 times a month, and had absolutely no interest in financing $60,000 to get one. Those people had been quietly priced out of the truck market and nobody had noticed, because the industry had spent 20 years chasing the buyer at the top of the range instead of the buyer at the bottom. The average new full-size pickup had crept past $60,000. Loaded versions were clearing 80 and 90. A half-ton truck had turned into a luxury product with a bed attached. And the entry-level truck, the plain work truck that used to be the default first vehicle for a tradesman or a farm kid or a guy who just needed to haul things, had essentially stopped existing. The Maverick did not compete with the F-150. It competed with the absence of anything at all, which is why the number mattered so much. 1995 was not just a price, it was a statement that the affordable truck was not dead, it had only been abandoned. Now hold that number in your head, because we are about to watch what happened to it, and I want you to understand that what happened next was not really Ford's decision. Most of it was done to them. The first increase was ordinary. For the 2025 model year, Ford gave the Maverick a facelift. New front end, updated interior, a few features moved down from the higher trims, and the price went up by roughly $3,000. Nobody loved it, but nobody was shocked either. That is how the business works. A refresh costs money, the money comes out of the buyer. If that had been the end of it, this would be a very boring video. It was not the end of it. Because there is one fact about the Maverick that almost nobody outside the industry was paying attention to, and it is the single most important fact in this entire story. The Maverick is not built in the United States. It is assembled in Hermosillo, Mexico, on the same line as the Bronco Sport. For 20 years, that detail was invisible to buyers. It was just how the supply chain worked. Parts crossed the border 3 or 4 times before a finished vehicle rolled off a line, and North America functioned as one integrated manufacturing region. Then the tariffs arrived, a 25% duty on imported vehicles, 50% on steel and aluminum, and a trade framework that automakers had built their entire North American strategy around, suddenly stopped being reliable. Think about what that means for a truck like this one. A 25% tariff on a $90,000 luxury SUV is a painful number, but the people buying those vehicles largely absorb it. They finance it, they lease it, they complain about it, and they sign anyway. A 25% tariff on the cheapest truck in America is something else entirely, because the entire reason that truck exists is the price. Strip the price advantage away, and you have not made the Maverick more expensive. You have removed its reason to exist. And that is the part that almost nobody said out loud at the time. Tariffs do not hit every vehicle equally. They hit the cheap ones hardest. Affordable vehicles get built where labor and logistics are cheapest because there is no margin left to absorb anything else. So a policy aimed at bringing manufacturing homelands with the most force on exactly the vehicles that working people were still able to buy. The luxury market shrugs, the bottom of the market takes the hit. Ford saw the invoice coming, and a dealer memo went out. Another price increase on the Maverick, on top of the one that had already come with the refresh. Reuters reported that prices across the Mach-E, the Bronco Sport, and the Maverick would climb by as much as $2,000 on certain configurations. And when the dust settled, the base Maverick landed just under $29,850 after delivery. Sit with that for a second. That is the same truck, same platform, same hybrid system, same steel wheels, same cloth seats. $1995 at launch, just about $30,000 4 years later. And here is the detail that turns the whole thing from expensive into absurd. The Maverick had become the last vehicle in Ford's entire lineup that started under $30,000. The final holdout. Every other blue oval product, including a base Escape with no options, was already above that line. The Escape being the interesting comparison because the Escape is built in Kentucky, same platform family as the Maverick. Built inside the United States, no import duty applied, and it costs more. So the policy designed to reward building here produced a market where the Mexican-built truck and the Kentucky-built crossover ended up in the same price bracket, and the cheapest thing Ford sells is a truck that is barely a truck's width away from $30,000. Zoom out from Ford for a moment, because this is not a Ford problem. Across Japan's 6 largest automakers alone, tariffs, shifting electric vehicle policy, and changes to emissions rules cost roughly $27.5 billion in a single fiscal year, with tariffs accounting for around $15 billion of that on their own. Forecasts put another $14 billion on top of it in the following year. $40 billion in cost, sitting inside an industry that ultimately has exactly one place to send a bill: the window sticker. So by the time the 2026 model year was being planned, everybody who follows this market was making the same prediction. Every analyst, every forecast, every dealer principal who was willing to say it in public. The Maverick was going to cross $30,000, and the affordable truck was going to be dead for good. Then Ford opened the order books and did the opposite. Ford cut the price. Not on a trim nobody buys. Not with a rebate that expires in 6 weeks. Not with an asterisk attached to a financing offer you have to qualify for. They lowered the actual sticker price of the truck across most of the lineup in the middle of the worst cost environment the industry has faced in 50 years. Here is what it actually looks like. The base Maverick XL with the turbocharged EcoBoost engine and front-wheel drive starts at $27,145. That is $1,000 less than the equivalent truck cost the year before. One all-wheel drive, $28,145. Down again, though only by $125. Move up the range, and it keeps going. The Lariat with the EcoBoost engine came down by more than $900. The Lariat Hybrid came down $350. Even the Tremor, the off-road version with all-wheel drive and the turbo motor standard, came down $350. The destination charge went up $100, which Ford is not going to advertise. Net it all out, and the average buyer is paying roughly $900 less for the same truck. And they did something else that got almost no coverage at all. For the 2025 model year, if you wanted the turbocharged engine, you were forced into all-wheel drive. The two were bundled. That bundling added cost, and it pushed buyers who just wanted the more powerful engine into a drivetrain they may not have needed. For 2026, Ford unbundled it. Front-wheel drive with the EcoBoost came back. That is not a discount. That is a cheaper configuration that did not exist before, added to the bottom of the range on purpose. So when the industry said the Maverick was going to break $30,000, Ford's answer was to add a new way to buy it for less. If you are getting something out of this, take a second and subscribe. This channel goes through the money side of the car business, the pricing, the policy, the decisions that get made in boardrooms and land on your window sticker 6 months later. It is free, and it tells the algorithm to keep bringing you this kind of breakdown. Now, the obvious question, why would any company do this? Because on paper, it makes no sense. Costs are up. Tariffs are real. Every incentive in a cost squeeze points toward raising prices and protecting margin per unit. The answer is that Ford is not defending margin on this truck. They are defending territory. Understand the position the Maverick occupies. There are only 2 compact pickups on sale in this country. 2. And the Maverick outsells the other one by roughly 6-1. That is not a competitive segment. That is a monopoly with a witness. Ford invented this category. They found a buyer that Detroit had written off. They built the only product serving that buyer. And for 4 years, they have owned essentially all of it. If the price crosses $30,000, that buyer does not move up to an F-150. He does not move sideways to a competitor. He leaves. He buys a used truck, or he keeps the one he has, or he decides a crossover was fine all along. And once he is out of the market, Ford does not get him back for years. So the calculation is not about this quarter's profit on this truck. It is about whether the entire segment survives and whether Ford still owns it on the other side. They chose the segment, and the market has been answering. In one recent month, Maverick sales jumped more than 16% to nearly 12,000 units, the best August that truck has ever recorded. Ford's overall sales rose almost 4% in the same period. The compact pickup did not turn out to be a niche. It turned out to be the thing everybody wanted and nobody was selling. There is one more piece of evidence that this is not a fluke, and it is the one Ford is proudest of. The Maverick Lobo, the street-tuned, lowered version of this same platform, was named North American Truck of the Year for 2026. A truck that starts under $30,000, built on a car platform with front-wheel drive available, beat every full-size and mid-size competitor in the field. So we have established what happened and why. Now let me show you what it actually costs to put one in your driveway today, because the sticker price and the number you sign for are 2 different things. And there is a figure in the fine print that changes the entire math. $27,145. That is the number Ford leads with, and it is a real number, but it is not the number you sign for, because that price does not include destination, and destination on this truck is $1,695. That charge is not optional. It is not negotiable. It is not a dealer add-on you can argue your way out of on a Saturday afternoon. It is the cost of moving the truck from Hermosillo to the lot, and every buyer pays it. Add it in, and the cheapest Maverick you can actually take delivery of is $28,840. Still under $30. Ford earned that headline honestly. But now add tax, add title, add your license and registration. In most of this country, a base Maverick XL, steel wheels, cloth seats, the cheapest configuration Ford builds, crosses $30,000 before you drive it home. So here is the honest version of the story. The sub-$30,000 truck still exists on Ford's website. At the finance desk, it is already gone. I want to be straight with you about that because there are channels that will tell you Ford just brought back the $20,000 pickup, and that is not what happened. What happened is that Ford stopped the bleeding. They did not reverse it. 1995 is not coming back. Not on this truck, not on any truck. What Ford actually did was hold a line that everybody expected to break. In a year, when the honest forecast was another $2,000 on the sticker, they went the other way and gave $900 back. That is worth something. It is just not the same thing as cheap. Now, if you are actually shopping, there is one configuration in this lineup that makes more sense than the rest, and it is not the one Ford advertises, the hybrid. The turbocharged EcoBoost is the engine that gets the headlines, and yes, it makes 250 horsepower, and it will tow 4,000 pounds with the right package. But the hybrid returns up to 42 miles per gallon in the city, 42, in a pickup truck. If you are the buyer this truck was built for, running errands, hauling a few times a month, driving mostly in town, the hybrid is not the compromise version. It is the entire point of the vehicle. The turbo is what you buy when you need to pull something heavy, and most people who think they need that do not. The $1,000 you save at the pump over a few years is the difference between this truck making sense and this truck being a slightly smaller version of the problem it was invented to solve. Now the part that matters more than any of it. This truck is built in Mexico. That has not changed, and neither has the risk attached to it. The trade framework the entire North American auto industry was built on is still unsettled. The agreement governing which vehicles cross the border, duty-free, is under review, and vehicles that fail to qualify already face a 25% tariff. Ford absorbed the cost this year. They made a decision to protect the segment instead of the margin, and they ate the difference. No company does that forever. So what you are looking at right now is not a permanent price. It is a company holding a door open with its shoulder, and the door is heavy. If the trade picture gets worse, this truck goes up. If it stabilizes, the price you see today might be the floor for the next several years. Either way, the affordable pickup in this country now depends on a policy decision, not an engineering one. Ford solved the hard part 4 years ago. They proved you can build a genuinely good truck and sell it cheap, and people will line up around the block for it. Whether you can still buy one is being decided somewhere else entirely. If you want to understand where the rest of your money is going, watch the video on screen next. It breaks down exactly how much of a new vehicle's price is now tariff cost, and which brands are quietly passing more of it to you than others. And subscribe, because this is the only part of the car business nobody wants explained clearly. I will see you in the next one.